At the end of this topic, you will be able to define environment, environmental science, pollution and pollutant. Distinguish the biodegradable wastes from non-biodegradable wastes. Analyze how modernization played a role in pollution. Point out the methods of safety disposal of wastes. Reason out the importance of recycling the wastes and its benefits. Environment is a living, biotic and non-living abiotic surrounding of an organism or a population and the factors which influence in their survival. Biotic factors include all the living things like microbes, plants, animals and human beings, whereas abiotic factors include air, water, land, forest, mountains, sunlight, etc. Being an advanced and civilized animal, human beings depend on the natural resources like soil, water, coal, electricity, oil, gas, etc. to have an improvised and stylish life. Environmental science is a multidisciplinary science which deals with the organisms in relation to their surroundings. Human beings have enormous development in the name of civilization but not well planned, so there is a hell lot of wastage of natural resources which actually imbalance the nature. Since the growth is unplanned, the problems like population, environmental pollution, human survival, pest problems, deficits in natural resources, production of wastes in all the industries have become common in day-to-day life. The most common threatening issue of today's world is pollution. Pollution. Any undesirable change in the physical, chemical or biological characteristics of air, land, water, sound, soil and light that affect human life drastically is called pollution. Pollutant. A pollutant is a substance or energy released into the environment due to natural or human activity that has undesirable effects which affects the environment or life of an organism adversely. Example: sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, lead, mercury, chlorofluorocarbons, nitrous oxide, etc. Wastes can be classified into two categories: biodegradable wastes and non-biodegradable wastes. Biodegradable wastes. Substances that are degraded by biological or microbial action are called biodegradable waste. Wood, paper and leather are the best examples for biodegradable wastes. Non-biodegradable wastes. Substances that are not broken down nor degraded by biological or microbial action are called non-biodegradable wastes. Plastic substances and mineral wastes are the suitable examples for non-biodegradable wastes. Disposal of harmful waste materials can be carried out in three different methods, namely landfill, deep well injection and incineration. Landfill. There is an allotted land for permanent storage of domestic wastes. Secured lands have been allotted by the government for military-related liquid and radioactive waste materials. High-level radioactive wastes are stored in deep underground storage. Deep well injection. A deep well is drilled and filled with dry porous material below groundwater. Hazardous liquid wastes are pumped into the well for which they soak into the porous materials. The soaked liquid waste remains isolated in the well from human consumption for an indefinite period of time. Incineration. The burning of materials is called incineration. Hazardous biomedical wastes are usually disposed of by incineration method. Human anatomical wastes, discarded medicines, toxic drugs, blood, pus, animal wastes, microbiological and biotechnological wastes are called biomedical wastes. Non-hazardous solid wastes can be reprocessed and reused productively. Separating the solid wastes, rubber, glass, paper, metal scraps, etc. from the refuse and reprocess them for reusing is called as recycling or reclamation of wastes. Recycling of paper. Used paper can be repulped, reprocessed and recycled. Recycled papers are used to make cardboard, fancy articles and other products. 54% recovery is achieved in used papers. Recycling of glass. 20% of used glasses are recovered for same good purposes. Crushed glasses can be made into new containers or used as a substitute for gravel or sand in construction materials such as concrete and asphalt. Recycling of food wastes. Food wastes and yard wastes like fallen leaves, grass, etc. can be composted to produce humus, compost, which is a good organic fertilizer for plant in turn. In this topic, you have learnt environment means there is an interaction between biotic and abiotic surrounding of an organism. Biotic factors include microbes, plants, animals, etc. and abiotic factors include air, water, land, etc. have an influence on each organism's survival. A study which deals with the organisms in relation to their surroundings is called environmental science. Human beings' unplanned modernization, imbalance in nature, lead to pollution. Any undesirable change in the physical, chemical, or biological characteristics of air, land, water that affect human life drastically is called pollution, and the substances which cause pollution is called pollutant. There are two types of wastes called biodegradable wastes and non-biodegradable wastes. Disposal of harmful wastes can be done by three methods. Domestic wastes, military-related liquid and radioactive waste materials are disposed by landfill method. Hazardous liquid wastes are disposed by deep well injection method, and biotechnological and human anatomical wastes are disposed by incineration method. There are some solid wastes which are recycled and reused. 54% of paper and 20% of glasses are reprocessed, recycled and reused. The government and many organizations conduct awareness programs on waste management. At the end of this topic, you will be able to point out the importance of water, name the sources of salt and fresh water, explain the methods of increasing the supply of fresh water, design the rainwater harvesting system at your home, plan your domestic activities using minimum fresh water. Water is a prime natural resource and valuable asset to all nations. Human beings depend on water for all their needs such as bathing, washing, cooking, transportation and power. The availability of water determines the location and life activities of human beings than any other environmental factors. Though water is the engine that drives the earth, it is not an infinite resource. The majority of human uses require fresh water, which is constantly decreasing due to booming population, rapid urbanization, water pollution, disturbed ecosystems, vast expansion of business activities, climatic changes, etc. There is an urgent need for conserving every single available drop of fresh water as the demand for water is increasing. Sources of water can be natural or artificial. Rainwater, oceans, rivers, lakes, streams, ponds, and springs are natural sources of water. Dams, wells, tube wells, hand pumps, canals, etc. are man-made sources of water. Water is of two kinds, salt water and fresh water. Ocean, sea, coastal lagoons, river estuaries, sea ice are the main sources of salt water. Fresh water is obtained from three major sources such as rainwater, surface water, and groundwater. The main sources of water are rain and snow. Rain is a major component of the water cycle and is responsible for depositing most of the fresh water on the earth. Surface water is nothing but water on the surface of the planet. Rivers, lakes, streams, and ponds are the good examples for surface water. India is blessed with more number of rivers. Aquifers are underground reserves of fresh water. Groundwater is the water which percolates into the ground through porous rocks. As the porous rocks are saturated with water, it keeps water to a certain level. The upper layer of water level is the water table. The groundwater is important for plant growth. Man spout groundwater through tube wells and bore wells. Scanty rainfall and deforestation affect the groundwater level. Availability of fresh water can be managed by the following methods: seeding clouds to initiate raining, desalinating seawater by reverse osmosis, constructing dams, reservoirs and canals, managing watershed to store runoff water, harvesting rainwater at home for future use, conserving wetlands to recharge the aquifers, conserving water in domestic activities, conserving water in industries by recycling, reusing the cooling water, etc. Cloud seeding is the process of spreading either dry ice or potassium iodide into the upper part of clouds to stimulate the precipitation process for forming rain. Reverse osmosis is a water purification technology that removes the contaminants from water by pushing the water under pressure through a semi-permeable membrane. Reverse osmosis is an increasingly common method of desalination because of its low energy consumption but expansive than other freshwater sources. Desalination can also be done by evaporation and recondensation methods. Dams and reservoirs tap runoff water in them and transfer the excess water to water-scarce areas through canals and underground pipes. The management of rainfall and resultant runoff is called watershed management. Small dams, reservoirs are watersheds from where water will be supplied to the locals. Watersheds provide good habitats for wildlife and also stock watering facility. Rainwater harvesting is a process of collecting rainwater from the roof of buildings or courtyards and storing it underground for later use. The main purpose of harvesting rainwater is to check the runoff water. Electric motor can be fixed to pull the water up for usage. Process of rainwater harvesting is simple and economically beneficial. It is pretty useful in urban areas and also prevents flooding in living areas. Wetland conservation is aimed at protecting and preserving areas where water exists at or near the earth's surface, such as swamps, marshes, and bogs. It preserves natural water storage and recharges groundwater. Wetlands are good habitats for wildlife and they also prevent floods. Domestic conservation means to save water at home. We can conserve water at home by using low-flow taps, minimizing the use of water while cleaning vegetables, washing dishes, monitoring leaks in water pipes, using recycled water for lawns, home gardens, vehicle washing, etc. Cooling towers should be checked regularly as it is the major water-consuming zone of industries. Replace water cooling equipment with air cooling equipments. Water used for cooling purposes can be recharged. Wastewater can be treated and reused.
In this topic, you have learned
water is a prime natural resource and our existence depends on water, but available fresh water is getting decreased due to various reasons and it is our duty to conserve every drop of available water. There are natural and artificial sources of water and water in India is of two kinds, namely salt water and fresh water. Oceans, seas, lagoons, estuaries, etc. are sources of salt water and rain, surface water and groundwater are sources of fresh water. Rain is a major component of the water cycle which fills the surfaces like rivers, lakes, etc. And groundwater is the water which percolates into the ground through porous rocks and aquifers reserve the groundwater. Available fresh water is managed by seeding clouds to initiate raining, desalinating seawater by reverse osmosis, constructing dams, reservoirs and canals, managing watersheds to store runoff water, harvesting rainwater at home for future use, conserving wetlands to recharge the aquifers, conserving water in domestic activities, and conserving water in industries by recycling, reusing, etc. At the end of this topic, you will be able to define what wildlife is all about, reason out the importance of wildlife and its conservation, tell the uses of wildlife, conclude the importance of sanctuaries, enumerate the wildlife sanctuaries, national parks, reserves, etc. in Tamil Nadu as well as India. All non-domesticated and non-cultivated biota found in natural habitat are termed as wildlife. It includes all the natural flora and fauna of a geographic region. Wildlife is an asset of every nation and it should be protected and preserved for our own advantage and also for the benefit of future generations. According to the recent survey, we are the proud owners of 400 varieties of reptiles, 200 varieties of amphibians, 3,000 varieties of fishes, 3,000 species of birds, 4,100 species of mammals, and 20,000 species of flowering plants. It is essential to protect and conserve wildlife because they have aesthetic, ecological, educational, historical, and scientific values. Balance in ecosystem is maintained by good biotic diversity. Overpopulation and overconsumption of natural resources upsets the wildlife and ecological balance. Ecotourism is promoted in many countries because of the aesthetic beauty of the wildlife. Wildlife and their products have great economic value if utilized properly. The flora of wildlife has the treasure of medicinally valuable plants which yields medicines for almost all ailments. Wildlife forms are the storehouse of vast genetic diversity which paves the way for advances in genetic engineering. Thus, wildlife has been of great value in the past and will continue to be so in the future. A sanctuary means sacred place, and wildlife sanctuary is a place where animals and plants are protected from hunting, predation, and competition. The highest authority, who is responsible to manage or govern the sanctuary, is allowed to capture or kill the wildlife when necessity calls for, and other visitors can just enjoy the beauty of fauna and flora. Wildlife sanctuaries were established in India in order to conserve the wildlife and stabilize the ecological balance. In India, we have a vast area of 1.6 lakh square kilometers covering the 89 national parks, 500 wildlife sanctuaries, 27 tiger reserves, 200 zoos, and 13 biosphere reserves. In Tamil Nadu, we have a vast protected area of 3,305 kilometers square, 1,276 square meters, covering 3 biosphere reserves, 5 national parks, 8 wildlife sanctuaries, 4 elephant reserves, 3 tiger reserves, and 12 bird sanctuaries.
In this topic, you have learned
all non-domesticated and non-cultivated biota found in natural habitat are termed wildlife, which include the natural flora and fauna of a geographic region. Wildlife is an asset of every nation, and it should be protected for its aesthetic, ecological, educational, historical, and scientific values, diversity, medicinal, and economical values. Recent estimation says that we have 400 varieties of reptiles, 200 varieties of amphibians, 3,000 varieties of fishes, 3,000 species of birds, 4,100 species of mammals, and 20,000 species of flowering plants. Sanctuaries have been established in India to protect and preserve the natural assets, and right now we have a vast area of 1.6 lakh square kilometers covering the 89 national parks, 500 wildlife sanctuaries, 27 tiger reserves, 200 zoos, and 13 biosphere reserves, and in Tamil Nadu alone, we have 3 biosphere reserves, 5 national parks, 8 wildlife sanctuaries, 4 elephant reserves, 3 tiger reserves,